And thank you. So good evening. Bienvenue. Welcome to all of you. Thank you to all of you who have joined us tonight. So I understand it might have taken a little more willpower to connect online as we start to get our first real taste of spring here. We truly appreciate your interest and welcome your any comments or questions as we attend the presentation tonight. As we begin, we acknowledge that we are on the ancestral lands of the Anishinaabe and within the Treaty 3 territory, and we acknowledge the Métis who also call this area home. Finally, just a quick personal introduction. I'm afraid I'm not able to share my screen here, but this is my voice here. My name is Rob Roy Donaldson. For most of my career, I've been fortunate to live and teach in the Rainy River District, where I grew up. Currently, I'm coordinator of both experiential learning and the Ontario Youth Apprenticeship Program at the Rainy River District School Board, roles that really overlap well in the area of supporting students in the area of pursuing the skilled trades and apprenticeship pathway. Like my colleagues in almost every school board across the province, I work with teachers, students, employers to support skilled trades co-op placements that'll actually allow students to get a head start on apprenticeship while in high school. And I also do what I'm doing here, engaging students, guardians, parents, students, guardians, and community partners in the conversation about this crucial pathway with the goal of developing the skilled trades workforce of the future. This role has also allowed me to see tonight's presenter speak at a couple events. Each time I was struck by his message and the research that supported it. And I remember making a note that if the opportunity came along, I would try to bring his message directly to our district. So I guess if there is one advantage to the need for remote meetings that this past year's brought, this is it. So Dr. Jon Callegher is the Executive Director of JobTalks, a research and media agency that focuses on Canadian workers. Jon is on a mission to share his research about job satisfaction in the skilled trades in an age when such jobs are in high demand. He has been invited to speak on CBC Radio, Global National, City Line, and at conferences across Canada and the US. Jon is also a professor in the School of Marketing at George Brown College in Toronto. He has a PhD in sociology from the University of Waterloo. And thanks patiently for sitting there while I read this out, Jon, and I'll let you take it from here.
Thank you so much, Rob Roy, and hi to everyone at home. I'm really happy to be able to spend time with you. Thanks for sharing your evening with me, a part of it anyways. I promise to make it worth your while. As Rob mentioned, my name is Dr. Jonathan Daniel Callegher. You can all call me John, and please, as was described earlier, if you have questions, by all means, put them in the chat, and Rob and myself would be happy to answer them at the end of my presentation. So I'm going to just do a few clicks here, which will allow you to see something on my screen, and ideally, you'll also be able to see my image as well. So I want to talk with you all today about 5 great reasons for a career in the trades. I know many of you in the audience, from wherever you are parents or guardians, and you might be fully supportive of a career in the trades, or maybe you don't know much about it at all. And I think I'm really going to help open your eyes to a world not only of different types of jobs, but how satisfied workers are according to our research. And of course, if you already are familiar with the trades, some things that you already know to be true related to worker satisfaction, will be confirmed, I think, by some of the results that I'm going to share with you. So I am someone who, after high school, I went to school for another 13 years. If you can imagine that, okay? I certainly couldn't. I was one of those students. Turned out to be like many others who did a university degree, in my case, sociology. And after 4 years, found myself having, of course, needing to pay back that university degree cost, but also find a job. And I learned the hard way, like many others, with, for example, a degree in history, English, geography, kinesiology, biology. There not necessarily was a job waiting for them when they graduated. You have to make it work. You have to take that newly earned credential and make it work for you. And I ended up continuing with more school to do a master's and then a PhD, which took 7 years. And all the while watching my counterparts, my younger counterparts, or rather my peers, find jobs, start their life while I was still in school. But I did end up studying Canadian workers in the last 4 or 5 years, and I learned some interesting data about workers across Canada, which I'm excited to share with you. When studying workers across Canada, the easiest way to do it, everybody, is by just giving a survey and having people, answer in a consistent way with the same survey. You give it to people in different types of jobs across the country, and you show them the same set of statements about how they might feel about their work. So I'm going to show you just a handful of the 50 statements that we showed Canadians about how they about statements related to their jobs, and ask them to respond in the following way: true for me, partly true for me, or not true for me at all. True for me, partly true for me, or not true for me at all. So parents, play along at home, think about your job and whether or not you could say true for me, partly true for me, not true for me at all. I like having the freedom to make my own decisions. I think my job is cool. My work brings me peace of mind. Doing my job makes me truly happy. I can come back and I can show you another. Most days I feel my work stimulating. I feel a special bond with other people in my field. I like that I can be myself at work. Hard work pays off in my field. We also asked about the negatives. You can learn a lot by how people respond to negative statements about their jobs. How many have said this? My job is much too stressful. If it wasn't for the money, I would quit my job tomorrow. Now, when you show these statements and nearly 40 more to Canadians in different jobs across the country, you start to see patterns in the way people answered. And we call those distinct patterns in research, we call them segments, worker satisfaction segments. And you can see here a segmentation of different types of workers according to how they feel about their jobs. You have the square pegs at 11%, the bottom rungers at 26%, the musketeers at 15%, the comfortable, the big surprise group here, which I'll talk more about later, at 21%, and the fulfilled at 27%. So let me now jump into each slice of the pie. All right, so square pegs. It's just a job. This is a segment of the Canadian workforce that only work for the money. Okay, their education is not aligned with their work. They unfortunately don't have a sense of contributing to society, and they're unmotivated and unhappy. This is about 11% of the Canadian workforce for whom their job is just a job, and they get no fulfillment from it, no meaning from it, and unfortunately, they're the least happy workers in the country. So the square pegs. The next, everyone, are the bottom rungers. And this is a segment of the Canadian workforce that comprises younger workers in different types of jobs, but especially those in office jobs, desk jobs, right? Where, sure, they might be our future leaders, they're outgoing and engaged, but they are impatient and frustrated. Why? Well, if you think about it, it kind of makes sense. They want mentors. They're craving a clear career path, but many workers in office jobs are finding themselves working with older workers who themselves, the older workers, are competing to get promoted and ensure their own job security. And so these older workers who you might be, as a younger person, looking to for mentorship, they're not giving that mentorship that they might have been hoping for. And we call this the millennial malaise, a sense of frustration, a sense of blah, where younger workers across different sectors of work are feeling as entry-level workers, especially those in desk or office jobs. So we had the square pegs, the bottom rungers, and now we have the musketeers. You know that phrase, all for one and one for all, this three musketeers, okay? Well, here's a group that we find comprise healthcare workers, especially. If you know a healthcare worker, someone at home might be a healthcare worker, okay, and or have a relative, you probably know that person to be a people person. They put other people first, and they put themselves second. It's oftentimes, we could say it's in their nature. People who are musketeers in this category make good caregivers, But make no mistake, they are also highly stressed. My mom was a nurse's aide, and she certainly, she worked in a hospital. She did come home oftentimes stressed out, and you can't always leave that stress at work. But one thing my mom was able to say with many other workers in the healthcare field is that they have a solidarity with their colleagues. They have a bond, and that helps them to come back, right? Especially in high stress environments. But make no mistake, they're close to burning out. And if anyone saw the news in the last year, you would agree or see and have evidence that many in the healthcare industry are under a great deal of stress during COVID-19, but it was also pretty stressful even before the pandemic. So just reviewing, we had the square pegs, the bottom rungers, the musketeers, and now we have the comfortable. This is the surprise hit, the group that really made everyone scratch their heads and say, what is this very large section of the workforce that are comfortable in their jobs that we haven't really been talking about as, in many cases, educators, as members of the general public, as parents. The comfortable, well, the comfortable are a group that comprise many tradespeople, and they have something, everyone, that most other sectors of work don't have among their workers. Work-life balance, a means to a good, balanced life where you leave work at work and don't take it home with you. I will talk more about this. The importance of work-life balance today cannot be understated. As I mentioned, many are tradespeople. They are settling down early, buying homes, starting families, buying vehicles, buying a second home, going on vacations, because they can, because they're not saddled, burdened with extreme university tuition debt at a young age that needs to be paid back. They're starting their life relatively debt-free and are able to start their life early as a result. And they are overwhelmingly satisfied. Of course, I'll talk more about this segment in a little while. Now, lastly, we had recapping the square pegs, bottom rungers, musketeers, the comfortable, and now we have the fulfilled. This is a group of workers who have work-life integration. I'm doing what I meant to do. We find mainly workers in education and management and leadership who, in those positions, management and leadership, you always have to be turned on, right? You can't just leave work at work. You're always, responding to emails, keeping up to date with what's happening with your staff, with your clients, and educators too. Rob Roy is a great example of someone who, it's outside of work hours, and Rob Roy is running this session in the evening, right, on a Tuesday night. It's work-life integration, and this is something that we see among educators, management leaders, but also we see it among tradespeople too. They are in the fulfilled category because tradespeople get a lot of value from their work. They have control over their work. They see the results of their work immediately. They're not working on the same, say, spreadsheet or PowerPoint or Word document for a week or two. They have, more likely to have smaller jobs where you see accomplishments every day, every hour, multiple times an hour. And they are, like educators and people in management, overwhelmingly satisfied compared to the other sectors of work. So just to recap, you have one group of the Canadian workforce, the square pegs, who are miserable, unfortunately. Another group, the bottom rungers, who are unhappy, but they're hopeful, okay? Another group, the musketeers, who are really stressed out. That's not great, but they like the people that they work with, which is important. And then you have the two happiest groups, the comfortable and the fulfilled, where we find tradespeople, educators, people in management and leadership positions. So if you were at home just to draw an invisible line down that pie chart, you're going to notice something, and you're going to notice some good news. The good news is that almost half of Canadians are happy in their jobs. Good news. Well, then you have to look at the other side of that, right? Which is some bad news, which is more than half of Canadians are not happy in their jobs. But what we are able to say, because we have the data to prove it, is that tradespeople are among the happiest workers in the country. But if you were to ask an average Canadian, what's a tradesperson? If you were to ask me that question 5 years ago, I would have given you a similar answer to about over 1/3 of Canadians. I would have said a plumber, I think, possibly an electrician, a carpenter. That's a tradesperson, right? And about 30 to 35% of Canadians will say, I don't know, or get it wrong, right? The trades are a group of workers that are very misunderstood in Ontario and across Canada. And we don't necessarily realize, especially younger people who are thinking about jobs, that agricultural equipment technician is a trade, tool and die maker, cabinet maker, sew and pastry chef is a trade, automotive service technician, hairstylist is a trade. And just for anyone here, please note that anytime you see an image of a worker and a job title, that there is a video interview that you can watch that I produced, which is 3.5 minutes long, high production value of that that respondent, okay, that guest, that person in that job, talking about why they like their job, describing it a bit, and in some cases giving salary information as well. So keep that in mind. A few more examples. These are trades too, right? Mechanical insulators, chefs, machinists, welders, electricians, plumbers, and to anyone here who is under the impression that the trades are just for guys, just for men, just for boys, everybody, let's set the record straight. Female welders, electricians, and plumbers. Women, iron workers, industrial mechanic millwrights, refrigeration and air conditioning mechanics. Women, truck and coach technicians, instrumentation and control technicians, automotive painters. And they have work-life balance, and they see the results of their work immediately, and they're fulfilled and comfortable in their careers. And I'll talk more and more about this later on. And remember that you can see a video interview with each of these people here. I encourage you to watch it with a child. So a path to happiness exists in the trades. But we know that when it comes to younger workers, they don't know about this path to happiness. And in fact, many who go into other types of work are experiencing highly negative, unfortunately, because we're able to measure these things, negative emotions and experiences compared to their older counterparts or to previous generations. If I were to ask you to describe a young worker today, you would rightly say that they're entrepreneurial, they're hardworking, they're driven, they want to make a difference. You know, they are ambitious. All of these things are true. But what is unfortunately also true is that among today's younger workers, they are experiencing higher levels of feeling tired, stressed, lost, worried, and having debt. And I'm going to touch on each of these. And I'm going to touch about the drivers of these unfortunately negative emotions and experiences, which we cannot ignore. And as parents, it would be, it would not go well to ignore the growing impact and frequency, the growing frequency of these emotions and the impact of them as they continue to increase among children, and how important it is to have a job where you spend the most of your waking active hours that ideally separates you from having experiences like these that you see on the screen, or it reduces those experiences. And of course, you know where I'm going. I'm going to share with you how younger workers in the trades are less likely to experience what you see on the screen. So if I were to ask you, how do you want to feel every day? You could probably think about it for a few moments, and immediately, or shortly, you'll say, well, I want to feel happy. I want to feel relaxed. I want to feel energized. I want to feel protected. I want to feel like I'm protecting. I want to feel content. The reality is, all of us want to feel all of the good things at the same time. And our journey as individuals, right, is to bring ourselves back into balance whenever we're feeling negative in one direction. So when you're feeling down in one direction, in one particular emotion, you eat something. I should say we, right? Well, we eat certain things, right? We read certain things. We watch certain social media clips, YouTube videos, television programs, talk to certain people to help us bring us back into balance when we're negative in one or a few different emotions. There is one emotion, everyone, that people across the United States, Canada, across all age groups, and around the world too, are feeling in comparison to other emotions much more. And unfortunately, it's not a positive one. The number one emotion felt by younger people, older people across Canada and the United States and many countries in the world is tired. And you might say, oh yeah, I was thinking stressed, I was thinking anxious, quote unquote depressed, but tired makes sense too. Now, tired can be connected over the last 10 years to the introduction to these devices that I'm holding in my hand, a device that has made a wonderful difference in my life, probably yours too, but also has been used by people of all ages for entertainment and socializing. And we, as a result, simply stay up later, right? We now watch the equivalent of multiple movies a day. This wasn't something that we used to do. We used to look at people strangely if they said, I watch multiple movies a day. Today, we just call it binge watching, and we give someone a high five when they binge watch, right? We've normalized it. Of course, that keeps us up later. The bedtime gets extended, but the wake-up time stays the same, so we're all walking around more tired, but also tired means not doing what you were meant to do, because there are people who are physically tired, but still have some energy. So when tired is not feeling like you're doing what you're meant to do, and that you're physically exhausted, the opposite of tired is not awake or energized. The opposite of tired, when we're tipped over in one direction and we're craving to be brought back into balance, the opposite of tired, everybody, is alive. And let me say that again, alive. When do you feel alive? Is it when you're sitting in front of a computer screen, staring at the same document for hours and hours? Is it when you're on the couch? When is the opportunity to feel alive? Is it when you're sleeping? No, you're sleeping. Is it when you're at home? We go home to rest. The opportunity to feel alive is at work. And for some people, they have jobs where all they do for most of the day is sit. And others have jobs where they're using their brain and their body. They're moving. And when you move, when you dance, when you run, when you engage in sports, when you're using your brain and body, you're more likely to feel alive. Well, the reality is that for many young workers in the prime of their life, their 20s or 30s, their job more or less looks like this, and it's doing that at the same place every time, even before COVID-19. Getting up, going in your commuting vehicle, sitting, going to work, sitting for several hours, take a lunch break, walk around for half an hour, or work from your desk, which happens a lot too. Continue working, sitting, get in your commuting vehicle, come back home, sit for dinner, sit on the couch, go to sleep, repeat on Tuesday. Repeat on Wednesday, repeat on Thursday, repeat on Friday. Young workers in the prime of their life are feeling tired. You know where I'm going. Tradespeople, in contrast, feel alive at work. Okay, some work inside, some work outside, or some work a combination of both. Different assignments, different places, a lot of variety. I use my body and mind. My days are never boring. There's so much variety. You get to see the product of your work right away, feeling alive at work. Another negative emotion that some of you might have thought of that people are experiencing today, you would be correct if you thought stress. Stress levels are up. Okay, and this is a big one, and similar to feeling tired, that cause feeling stress, increased levels of stress, can be connected to, yeah, these devices again. Now, any of you here, mom and dad, you would have 10 years ago looked at this image and shook your head and said, "Are you kidding me? Seriously? This can't be the future." You know, people aren't even talking with each other anymore. They have their heads in the devices. That's a shame, you might have said. That's a shame. Well, now I'm willing to bet that you might be willing to join one of these people on the bench. I might too, because we've normalized this behavior. And I'm not making any judgments. I'm just communicating the reality of today. And what the reality also is that in normalizing this behavior, where we have our heads constantly in our devices, we are also welcoming a constant stream of notifications, disruptions, interruptions into our daily lives. How many here maybe check their phone between now and the start of this presentation? Interrupting conversations, interrupting reading, interrupting times when we're supposed to focus. If I were to stretch my arms, if you can see me, I'm stretching my arms out. Let's say that represents the amount of time that human beings have been on the planet. At the very tip of your fingernail, in the span of time that human beings have been around, the tip of the fingernail represents the amount of time that our brains have been able to get used to, acclimatize to a constant stream of notifications, disruptions into our daily lives. If you think it's bad, you haven't seen anything yet. Just wait until you have 5G technology, which makes extremely fast internet connectivity from wherever you are. Add to that machine learning and artificial intelligence and the ability, the need, the desire of companies to personalize things to each of us, to try to sell us more things. If you think these are addictive now, we haven't seen anything yet. So I'm just going to now show you here. Here we go. Here's that slide where tradespeople have work-life balance. Tradespeople have a job where you are able to or required to remove yourself from your device. Think about that and what you want for your kids. Do you want your kids, if you were to think about if you could help them choose, would you recommend a job that required them to be constantly tied to a device, to be reachable by their bosses or clients outside of work hours, on weekends, on vacation? Or would you want them to have work-life balance and be able to leave work at work and pursue their family activities, personal entertainment without having to worry about their jobs? Would you also want for your child to have a job that actually carves in some disconnect, some separation between these devices? If that's the case, we have to keep the skilled trades on the table because it's one of the few jobs out there where you can't be on your device. In fact, where it's encouraged during work hours, required to focus on the responsibilities that have been given to you to complete work in a timely manner, to make your contribution to a team effort in a way that's free of distraction. Tradespeople can say, unlike many other workers, I'm not on my phone all day. I can manage my time for my convenience. I'm usually home by 5. Okay, I'm not being called back to the office, messaged back to the office. So some of you might have thought worried too, worried. This is correct as well. Many workers today, younger workers, are having more anxiety about their jobs. They're worried about their jobs. Do you know how many people, as a result of COVID-19 in Ontario, lost their jobs in the first 3 months? In the first 3 months of COVID-19, 1.1 million Ontarians lost their jobs. Another 1.1 million Ontarians had their hours significantly cut. If you're a younger worker and you're seeing that happen to older workers, or even your own job, It makes sense you'd be worried about the future. I think so. Well, let's look at a table here. Remember, I introduced to you some statements about how people felt about their work. I like this table. You can see on the left, you have a statement. And on the middle column, you have how tradespeople, where they answer true for me, or the rest of Canada, true for me. Most days, I feel like I put in an honest day's work. Almost 3/4, 73% of tradespeople compared to 2/3 of the rest of Canada. My work gives me a sense of success and achievement. 2/3 of tradespeople, 68% compared to less than half of Canadians. I often have fun at work, 60% compared to 43%. But look at the bottom, everyone. Nowadays, I often feel worried. 17% of tradespeople responded true for me to that statement, compared to 42% of the rest of Canada, 3 times more. Okay, Canadians in other jobs, they're 3 times more likely to say that they feel worried compared to tradespeople. Why? Well, tradespeople have something called skills security. Put it a different way, everybody, water is water. Electricity is electricity, wood is wood. The earth is the earth, hair is hair, ingredients are ingredients. A machine is a machine, a ball bearing is a ball bearing. You can work with these materials in different provinces, different countries, across different languages, and pivot should you need to do so with more ease than people in other types of jobs. And tradespeople, of course, also work among so many other workers in different types of jobs, so they get exposure to how other jobs are performed should they need to pivot or want to move to another career within the massive sector of the skilled trades and construction. The skills you develop are highly transferable. A trade is portable. Okay, this is Megan. Megan's an insulation installer. She puts insulation between drywall, right, in homes, condos, hospitals. Sees results of her work immediately, is a young woman who is making a great living, excellent benefits, has work-life balance, and loves her job. Oh, debt. Who wants to talk about debt? I'm just going to come back here and just stop sharing for now, just so I can sort of look at mom and dad. I should be able to see you, right? And you don't have the PowerPoint on the screen. Let's just imagine, parents, that there are 2 students. Okay, you have 2 groups of graduates, and I'm not saying anything controversial here. I'm just stating some realities. You have one group of graduates that graduated from university with a university degree. At the end of that 4 years, if the tuition wasn't paid for initially, it has to be paid back because it was purchased through a student loan. So after 4 years of university, you now have tuition and books that are around $30,000 to $40,000 that will need to be paid back, okay, if the child is living at home. So add tens of thousands more if they're moved out. But that's got to be paid back. A job now needs to be found using that credential, ideally, to get a job. And of course, there's this need to want to move out of the house. And I'm guessing, 20 years ago, before you had kids, you might not have been imagining that your children in their early mid-20s would still be living at home with you. Well, this is a reality that parents are confronting in increasing numbers across North America. So there's one graduate. There's another graduate who could have went through the Ontario Youth Apprenticeship Program in high school and started an apprenticeship and immediately started getting paid in that apprenticeship, and then graduated high school, continued with that apprenticeship, was offered a full-time job, and is starting their life as an independent young working adult in their early 20s. Or related to that, go to college, a college program, have an apprenticeship in that program, graduate from college with a diploma or advanced diploma, and continue with that apprenticeship into a full-time job. What the difference is one group had to pay basically first and find out if that credential was going to work for them. The other group got paid while they were learning. And I'm just going to come back to my slides now here. And that's an important difference and something that we don't emphasize enough because of the financial implications. We tend to kind of get ahead of ourselves and really put a value, a dollar amount on what could be gleaned from a university education. The reality is many university degrees don't lead to a job. You have to really try to make it work. But tradespeople get paid while learning. I started earning when I was 19. That's somebody else, everybody. Me, John, I started earning when I was 29. And I tell you now, I wasn't earning as much as someone who was a tradesperson in 19 or 20 years old when I was 29. You can support a family on it. And lastly, lost. Feelings of being lost. It's ironic. The more you know about the world, the more questions we ultimately have about the world, it turns out. What's my place? How am I going to make a difference? What's my contribution that I can make to society? Well, tradespeople can answer that. Tradespeople make a difference in the world and they have no problem articulating it. I help make Canada's businesses and institutions modern and safe. I help build homes, schools, hospitals, stadiums. I help maintain them. I contribute to the wellness of my community. Without me, civilization as we take for granted would not exist. I'll ask you, Mom and Dad, can you articulate the difference that you make in the world through your job? You may be a good, you might say, well, I pay taxes. Okay, good. I hear you. And we need taxpayers to make sure that we have programs, right, to make our province, our country be successful, of course. But can you also say the contribution, the difference that you make in the world, in people's lives through your job? It's tough. Not everyone can do it. My wife has a good job. She likes her job. It's in media advertising. In other words, she helps sell advertising. And in some cases, in many cases, that involves helping companies sell junk food to you and your children. She has thought about this question. Do I make a difference in the world through my job? And she's unable to say much about it. If you want your kids to be able to say that, they can, if to have a job in the skilled trades, for the reasons that I think now are obvious. They'll also get mentoring. 80% of workers are prepared by mentors. Do you think that your child could benefit from having a mentor, a different mentor, besides yourself in their young adulthood? Well, mentoring is something in the trades that is really valued. It's a tradition that's passed on from one generation to the next, where you have someone who has a body of knowledge, teaches a younger worker, that worker then absorbs that knowledge and passes it down to the next generation. It's a beautiful thing, and it's really respected, and one of the few types of areas of work where this tradition of mentorship exists. Okay, so if the trades are so great, why is there a shortage? I've said so many great things. Then why is there a shortage of tens of thousands in Ontario and hundreds of thousands across the country? So I'm going to begin wrapping up by just talking with you about three different reasons. The first is we have a narrow perception of the trades. We still, when we're younger, when I was back in school, and maybe for some of you too, what did you see on TV as potential jobs? If you were to look at the media, at television and movies for inspiration, you would see doctors, lawyers, nurses, police officers, firefighters, okay? Increasingly now forensic analysts, or because of NCIS and similar shows. We don't really see tradespeople in those types of jobs, right? And it's been the same for decades. When you see a tradesperson, even though they're all around you, when you're more likely to see a tradesperson, it's at a construction site, isn't it? When you're driving by or walking by, and it's a big pit, and it's dirty and dusty, and there's a man there, okay, toiling away in the extreme heat or cold, okay? And you could be excused for saying, that's not for me, maybe that's not for my kids either. But we don't see another reality. and it's there, and it's in small numbers, but it's growing. And it's Larissa, who is clearing a path here, okay, literally, as a bulldozer operator, who graduated from a college program with an apprenticeship, completed that apprenticeship with the company, offered her a full-time job, has work-life balance, see the results of her work immediately. She gets to work outside. She loves the people that she works with. She's making an excellent salary and benefits, and she started her life as an independent young adult. We don't see Larissa, and we don't when we walk by a construction site. Think of the booming business that goes into different areas of creating those structures, whether they be communities, whether they be hospitals, a home, a stadium, anything, that goes beyond that big pit, right? Including the pit, but so many other things as well. Tile setters, insulation installers, welders, framers, concrete and drain specialists, excavator operators, trim carpenters, site supervisors, stonemasons, carpet installers, drilling superintendents, health and safety managers, handyman, bulldozer operators, bricklayers, mobile crane operators, tower crane operators, tunnel boring machine operators. Mom and Dad, look at how young these faces are, most of them. And they're starting their lives as independent young adults, debt-free. They're happy in their jobs. But many of you haven't heard of these jobs. They haven't been promoted to you. And thanks to Rob Roy, we're hearing more about them. And I'm sharing with you some data that reveal that they're having higher levels of satisfaction than many other sectors of workers. And yet, Mom and Dad, we tend to say to our two kids, if you want a good life, go to university. And that comes from a place, quite simply, according to our research, parents, their primary emotion toward their children is just to protect their kids. They want to protect them. And when you want to protect your kids, you tell them the best information you have. And for many parents still, the best information they have is that if you want a good life, go to university. We didn't really consider some of the things that I already talked about. The fact that if the tuition is not paid for, you have to graduate with tens of thousands of dollars in debt and look for a job, pay back the debt, and also try to start your life by presumably getting a place to rent or putting a down payment on a home, which of course will accumulate more debt. We don't remember the fact that universities aren't a guarantee of a job. And there is a booming industry, which is I am in at the college level, which is a postgraduate program, which is booming programs that cater to university graduates who don't have any work experience. They are one-year postgraduate programs, and they're growing in numbers. So even though I teach at a college, most of my students have university degrees. They've had to come back to get work experience and applied learning, which they weren't getting at the university. But of course, parents who are in the trades know that you can have a good life and go to university. So I hope that you'll take some of that, this different perspective and watch some of those videos that I'll give you a link to in a moment, and know that you can have a great life in the trades. Educators, lastly, are part of the reason why we have a shortage, in that many educators over the years have not been promoting. It's changing in recent years, but educators haven't been likely to promote the trades because educators all went to university. They had to. And therefore, you're more likely to talk about what you know. But our society, broadly speaking, values something called academic intelligence. Now, what is intelligence? I submit to you that intelligence is simply the ability to see patterns and make predictions. And we celebrate people who see patterns and make predictions in words, history, and numbers, and we call them our public intellectuals, the smart people, the people who talk for a living, as opposed to those soft-spoken, mild-mannered people, shy people. We celebrate people who have academic intelligence, and we say they're the smart ones. Well, everybody, I want to ask you to imagine something. Imagine you have two students in a classroom. Okay? You have one student who can stand up in front of the class and recite from memory a poem by William Shakespeare or Plato's Allegory of the Cave, and just move everybody in that room with how beautifully that poem or allegory was recited. That's one student. And then you have another student that could stand in front of the class and explain to everyone in the class how a bridge is built and why structural integrity is very important. Which one of those students is smarter than the other? Well, I say to you, they're both smart. They just lean toward having different types of intelligences. One, the poet, has academic intelligence. The other has balanced intelligence. The ability to see patterns in the real world, to explain how a bridge is built, to explain how water is drawn to a home, to explain what happened when the Wi-Fi went out and no one knows what's going on, to explain how to get the electricity back on, how a foundation is built, how to grow food. If civilization was to come into question, if we had a scenario like in Texas not too long ago, in recent weeks, where they had blackouts for a long time, and we needed to band together, who would you want on your team? Would you more likely desire to have someone who leans toward balanced intelligence, a tradesperson, to help you get by when the chips are down? Or do you want a sociologist? Okay? Trust me, you don't want me on your team. I'll bring you down. Okay? You're more likely to benefit from someone who has balanced intelligence in circumstances like that, and we tend to take for granted the fact that civilization as we know it would not exist without people in the trades doing those jobs and getting, by the way, very well paid and having work-life balance along the way. So if you have a child who sees patterns in the real world, they have a curiosity, they're more of a hands-on learner, a tactile learner, rather than a theoretical-based learner. If they have an attention to detail, they notice things maybe that you haven't. They're, again, going back to that sense of curiosity. They have a situational awareness, which is great for health and safety. And they enjoy using their brain, but also their body. They like to move around. And you don't want them, finding themselves into a career where they're suddenly just sitting in the prime of their lives for their most active working parts of the day. If that's true, I have to say, why wouldn't you keep the skilled trades on the table as a consideration set and have them think about these types of careers in addition to the many others that have been promoted to them? It's time that we start talking about balanced intelligence and talking about the trades as a pillar, not the third pillar in post-secondary education, and stop saying university, college, trades. It should be college, trades, university, college, and we talk about it more interchangeably. That can start with anyone here and starting to change mindsets by avoiding that hierarchy. And talk about the impact that tradespeople make, the difference that they make in the world, okay? Without which, we wouldn't be able to have frankly, the comfortable life that we're so used to. So what are 5 great reasons for the trades? If you've been keeping score, you could recite it back to me, but I'll just repeat it here on a slide. You can feel alive at work. Have work-life balance, so coveted, so rare nowadays. Have skills security, be able to pivot to other sectors of work should you need to with relative ease, not worry about the future as much as other workers. Get paid while learning. Start your life after your education debt-free and make a difference in the world and be able to articulate that difference. If you've been sold on any of these things, look at a specialist high school major program. I believe it's available in your board. Take a tech class. Encourage kids to look at a tech class and explore the different types of trades. In another more formalized way, look at the Ontario Youth Apprenticeship Program. 16 years of age, 16 credits, grade 11 and 12. Your child could be one of those students who not only will graduate from high school with work experience, but also paid work experience and have the opportunity to continue in that trade after they graduate and be well on their way to an independent life with work-life balance, a sense of daily achievements, having mentorship, a sense of fulfillment, a great salary and benefits. What more could you want for your child? And by the way, too, that work-life balance means they'll have a job, mom and dad, where in your older years, they'll be more available and present in your life as they will with their own families. Unlike many other workers who have high-paying jobs and are time poor because they work 60 to 80, 100 hours a week, tradespeople not only have a great living, but they also have work-life balance and are able to spend time with their aging parents. So, as promised, JobTalks.org is where you can see videos of tradespeople in Red Seal trades, a variety of different trades, or more specifically, if you want to go more into the construction sector, look more into that booming, massive industry of residential construction, homes and condos, or small bridges, roads, infrastructure-related trades, jobtalksconstruction.ca and the other jobtalks.org. That's going to be it for me for the formal portion. I'm really grateful for the opportunity to have spent some of this evening with you, and I invite you to ask any questions that Rob and me can answer at this time. And I'm just going to close sharing. I should be able to do that. And Rob is there. I see his picture.
Hi there.
And Rob also has access to the chat.
Shall I bring you up on shall I bring up your image again live here?
Yeah, sure.
Okay. Okay, so we did have a question as you were thanks again, John. We do have a question that came up while you were presenting. Which trades have the highest rate of growth in job security in Ontario?
Oh, it's a good question. It's a common question, which I am not, I would say, qualified or in the right person to answer, the right position to answer, mainly because there are so many different trades and sort of types of trades within sectors, within construction, within residential construction. So to just pick on one and potentially have a labor association tell me that I'm incorrect or I'm underestimating or I'm overestimating, I think the better way of looking at it would be to find out a trade that you might be interested in and get a curiosity for it first, and then see where that goes in looking at what types of jobs are out there and the demand for it. One thing I try to avoid recommending is saying, I want to go where the job is in most in demand. Well, it might not be a job that you like, right? Because there's so many different types of jobs. Find out what you like first, and then know that there is a huge support system across Ontario to help you get into that particular job, whether there is an enormous demand for it or if the demand at a certain time is, has peaked. And maybe actually, Rob, you could address that as well if you have some more specific numbers of in-demand trades based on what you observed, because you're more have your ear to the ground, especially in your area.
In fact, yeah, thank you. And in fact, I was the NTAB. I don't know if you're familiar with NTAB in our region. It's the Northwest Training and Adjustment Board. They keep track of our labor stats. This is what I do. I was reading through it because it just came out. It is interesting to note in this region, and I don't know if this is true for all Ontario, but they keep track of the age breakdown of our skilled tradespeople. And if you look in our region, the percentage totally. It's total, and this is for Rainy River District and Keewatin North as well. The percentage of people in the labor force, a skilled tradesperson over 45 is 67%. So nearly 2/3 of our skilled labor force in the region is over the age of 45. What that tells us is we need young people, and this is what we're doing here right now. Yeah. So I would say. And with some of the projects going on, electricians are in high demand, skilled heavy equipment technicians are in high demand with the mining projects. But really, I think Jon's message is so important, is to start with what your interest is, start with what you know, and go from there.
I'll just briefly add to that, the question there, which was related to job security, Rob, and it's a great question as well. Again, know that compared to other sectors of work, if you're able to, if you have an expertise in a particular area, you'll be able to find a job, if not in your city, in an adjacent city, or should, as the world changes, you have to, people might have to move around. Know that, the materials that are required and your expertise in working with those materials are very similar wherever you go, anywhere in the world, which is really important. So again, whatever trade you decide to go into, there's a good likelihood that there is high job security there.
We have two other related questions here. One is, how do you get into apprenticeship, and how can my child learn more about which trades might suit them? And you're right. We had a lot of parents and families and students sign up for this tonight. And really, the message that the way I would sort of frame your message, Jon, is that this is a well-being. This is dispelling the stereotypes, reducing some of the barriers that to apprenticeship. Those specific questions, I kind of have started to develop a mailing list with the people who have registered here that are really engaged in this question. And I plan to be reaching out maybe to host some similar sessions that are about some of our programs, especially for students and their families who are heading into high school. There's lots of programs besides the Ontario Youth Apprenticeship Program, as well as specialist high skills major, like was mentioned, dual credits that need a lot more recognition. And I'm sensing there would be a fair bit of interest if I were to host a similar sessions as well. If I move on, so the question is, just to answer the quick question about what the brief rundown of what the Ontario Youth Apprenticeship Program is. Most people are familiar with co-op education, where students can earn high school credits while on a workplace placement. When that placement is in a skilled trade in the presence of a journey person who could potentially apprentice that person, they actually get registered with the Ministry of Labor's Training and Skills Development as a youth apprentice, and it actually is a way for the employer and the student to try out an apprenticeship with no commitment, right? But but often it does turn into, sometimes it actually does turn into, this employer says, I like this student who's on my placement. I actually do want this student to continue as an apprentice with me, and where they might not have tried out that student in the first place. And we actually have had that situation happen at least a couple times this year already. I'm going to move on to, but like I said, that might be a question that we'll address in a future session in a little more detail. Another question is, the government is currently focused on the healthcare field to assist and support people in getting into this field. Is there a plan to do a similar support to build up the trades field?
There was a big announcement today, actually.
Yeah.
I think it was $25 million in Ontario to encourage the more hiring of apprentices, so that's terrific. At least, politics aside, the current government is very supportive of skilled trades careers, and presumably future governments, in the relatively, near and medium future would continue that tradition, because there is a shortage, and it would be irresponsible of a government not to invest in trying to, fill the labor shortages in their economy. Is there more to that? I think there was something else in that question about healthcare, and you're just seeing now. So it goes back to that job security. Healthcare workers were seen as essential, where so were most tradespeople. Everybody, there's healthcare workers that got to leave and go to work, but also tradespeople, because you know, things need to be maintained and projects need to go on. Infrastructure projects, development projects need to be, you can't be put on hold.
Okay, well, we go through a few more questions here. When should I start talking to my child about careers? Yeah.
Hey, sorry, Rob, I'll just quickly go, really sorry, everybody.
Go ahead.
In the provincial government, as I understand too, will help pay for some or all of trades-related college education. So that's another way, another example of how the government is helping support people getting into the trades. You know, there are programs that exist where your college tuition can be paid for, in addition to you obviously getting an apprenticeship and having the potential to continue that. Sorry, Rob.
No, that's, yeah, like, and so there are investments being made like that. And again, the Youth Apprenticeship Program continues to be a way for like I said, to try out apprenticeships. And we also say, yeah, these are some more questions sort of more specific to the board, where we use career cruising, or it's a product called Zello now, to assess students' vocational interests. This would, and do you use any other type of assessment that will further assess students' interest to help them choose a career path? I should just mention that, yeah, my idea about maybe starting a series for parents about our pathways planning, definitely our Zello and our as sort of the centerpiece of our pathways planning would be definitely one that that we'll focus on there as well. Are there incentives for girls to engage in the trades? Yes, it is part of the mandate.
Wow, yeah. Oh, big time.
What did you?
No, go ahead, Rob.
Oh, no. Well, firstly, OYAP, part of our mandate is to engage females in trades. And we have hosted, you know, the last Young Women's Conference that we hosted in Fort Frances was very successful. We had people from all over, from as far as Sioux Lookout, with over 100 young female students interested in the trades, meeting with 13 mentors in the getting them to ask questions. And a lot of I was really happy to see some of our recent graduates of Rainy River District School Board, you know, really excited to come back and be able to sort of mentor the next generation. And that was hosted by OYAP. And we also have booked another speaker, yeah, that you can look for, that I think I saw an image, Jamie McMillan, I think was one of the images that I saw in John's, who has a great message for female students as a role model.
Yes, and you will be, I promise you, blown away by the amount of support in Ontario in terms of associations, conferences, webinars, communities, in terms of supporting women to get into the trades. It has, for me, been probably one of the biggest surprises in sort of entering the space and learning about how people advocate for different sectors of work. There's no other, in my opinion, more of a dedicated, devoted, supportive, awesome community of women supporting women entering this career.
And there are incentives, as John said, federally. There's a grant that's available for females entering the trades as well. I should also mention that OYAP is part of OYAP's mandate is also to encourage the trades for Indigenous students. So we do host events and mentors events there as well. Another question is, are red seals transferable across the provinces? And the answer is yes. Yes.
That's the kind of the main definition
yeah.
of a red seal trade.
And that's the big sell of the red seal trade is get your red seal and you can work anywhere in Canada. We have a couple new ones here, John. Thanks. No new questions being posted at the moment.
Well, those were some great questions.
Yes, and definitely seeing the need and the interest there to continue this discussion in another forum. So, well, thank you, Jon. Once again, I really appreciate that you were here and that so we had so many attendees come to hear your message. Besides, promoting the skilled trades, I realized as I watched this that we could frame this. Rainy River District School Board is committed to giving students skilled trades opportunities, but also we're also committed to students' well-being more than ever, given the events of the past year. And really, the message you've given is also easily framed as a well-being message. Students who have a good sense of a pathway, who have a sense of purpose, students who, as you said, benefit from all of the 5 great reasons that you presented there. That's a recipe for, work-life balance and just an overall well-being and a life well lived. So thank you for that.
Thank you, Rob. That was a beautiful summary. I couldn't agree more.
Okay. And one last. See if they have any questions, and just lots of thank yous. Wonderful presentation. This was excellent, and lots of questions about the recording. And yes, it is being recorded, and we will be able to share it out as soon as it's ready. I appreciate that. So,
that's great.
If there aren't any other further questions, thank you again, and good night.
Thank you. Thanks, everyone.